Hello there, this is Retro Spirits Garden, presenting EXCITEBIKE 64 on the N64, and I'm pretty excited because I don't think I was ever going to be able to record this game with my capture device woes, but it just so happens the game doesn't change resolution too much, so I've got a pretty decent capture, yay for me and the internet. This is a motocross style riding a bike game where you're a cartoon caricature of a dude riding a cartoon caricature of a motorbike. If you remember the original EXCITEBIKE on the old NES, and I'm sure some of you do out there, you'll know that it's quite a characterful game with appealing cartoon graphics. Now if you're looking at the N64 version here, you'll notice it's a grimy, slightly sludgy looking, quasi-realistic slightly charmless looking game, but hey, it's still got the EXCITEBIKE mechanics and it's in 3D, so you can't argue with that. You have got an accelerator and you've got a boost button, which I'm not using very much in the first race because I forget how to play the game. I'm genuinely excited that this game's booted up and I can actually play it because firstly, my cartridge was a bit screwed, and I've cleaned it, and it hadn't worked for ages, and I've cleaned the pins slightly, and now it works, so I can play the game again. And secondly, it's not crapping out my devices, which is great. You can see that the graphics are quite sharp. This is a combination of the N64 using the high-res pack, plus I've got scan lines on the video itself. The FrameMeister has the ability to add scan lines, and that cleans the N64 image up slightly. If I was playing Mario Kart 64 without scan lines, it would look like a blurry, ugly mess. But putting scan lines on it for some reason disguises some of the low resiness, so that's cool. But hey, you've got animated characters that look like they animate at a third of the frame rate of the rest of the game, which is cool. I've got a feeling this game runs at 30 frames a second. This is a 60 frames a second video, but in the actual game, when you play it on a TV, those animations do look choppy and weird, so I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, you've got this bike. Like I say, you've got a accelerator, you've got a turbo, and you've got a brake. On the shoulder button, you have got a drift style mechanic, so you can slide around the corners. And if you position your bike correctly, you can clip the front wheel of other bikes, and you can knock the riders from their bicycles, their motor bicycles, and you get a excited commentary telling you what you've done. I don't think you get any bonus points for knocking people off their bikes, but yeah, it's an alright game. It's a bit like a motorbike version of Wave Race, but without some of the charm of Wave Race. You can see, if you've got eyes that work, the graphics are a bit charmless. I mean, they're quite impressive in terms of they're solid, they don't glitch, they're quite high res, and for an N64 game they're not badly textured. They're just, like I say, lacking in charm. The music and commentator are pretty annoying. You can't argue with that, I don't think. But overall, the presentation of it is quite tidy for an N64 game. I think this is a late one, and the gameplay is actually pretty decent. The bikes handle quite nicely once you get used to them, and I'm not quite used to it yet in this race. The turbo feature, quite fun to use. You have to make sure you turbo at the right point to get over the humps. And I can't remember any of the courses, so I don't know where the optimum places to do that are. I'm making excuses for my poor game skills. What else have we got going on? We have got poor game skills, and we have got a championship, so you can come in kind of the top 3 to getting points. I can't remember if it kicks you out if you don't make enough points in a wave race style. I'd have to play it a bit more to remember. So this is, don't treat this as like a super review. Das super review. It is kind of like, I haven't played this for years. I busted out the old N64 and look at it go. Quite enjoyed it really. The game at the moment, I did have a check, you can kind of get the game for 20 to 25 quid for a box copy, which isn't super expensive, and you might even be able to pick up a brand new copy because I'm not sure this game was all that popular, especially on the old Japanese N64. If you have access to an NTSC N64, American or Japanese will do you. See, look, those animations are running at a third of the frame rate of the actual game. Weird. Must be some sort of optimization thing. Got a rendered N64 joypad there. These presentation screens are a bit ugly. Yeah, so we've got a bit of a mixture of indoor and outdoor tracks too. Some of them, the indoor ones, have multiple tiers in them, and it gets kind of complicated. But they're groovy. They tend to have very tight corners as well, so you do have to slow down. You have to use your brake sometimes. Imagine having to use your brake on a racing game. Unbelievable. You can jump outside the course as well, and you will fall off your bike, but you get respawned. And I think if you tap the button quicker, you seem to sort of get respawned quicker. Tap the accelerate button. I don't know if that's just something that I do because of wave race, because in wave race that happens. You can kind of get back to your jet ski if you're knocked off quicker if you keep tapping the button. Whether it's just habit or whether it actually works in this game, I don't know. If you were to buy the Japanese version of the game, you should get a card in the box that shows you how to do some moves. They're quite fond of their moves cards, I seem to remember. Like most sane people, I don't keep my N64 games in the boxes. I keep the boxes elsewhere, safe, secret and safe, and the cartridges are just in a box. So I don't even know where the box for this is, but I seem to remember there being a card in there showing you some things. And the front, I remember the front cover being sort of red and black and sort of ugly looking. Yeah, so they stripped all the colour and all the charm out of the graphics, which is nice of them. But they've retained some nice gameplay. The game is fun to play, and if you play it in lower res mode, I'm not sure how much lower res it is, you get some frame rate back. But this isn't a slouch at the moment, so maybe I am playing it in low res mode, I don't know. But again, the scan lines, adding the scan lines to the old image, has helped clean it up a little bit, which is groovy. Yeah, that's EXCITEBIKE 64. Yeah, it's sort of 20-ish quid. I think I paid less than that, but it was a few years ago now, so it will have gone up a little bit. But it's not a, like I said, not a super popular game, so N64 games in general aren't super expensive, so I would imagine this would be relatively cheap. PAL versions, no idea. Back in the day I did have the PAL version of this game, and I remember it being choppy, very choppy in the frame rate department. But this is quite smooth, quite enjoying this as an experience. Got a blended grid line there, alpha faded, beautiful. Got some fogging on this level. I'm sure it's for atmosphere purposes and not frame rate. I've never played this in multiplayer, and I'm not even sure there is a multiplayer mode. Do you know what? I'd be surprised if there wasn't a split screen mode, but I've got no idea how to access it on a Japanese, because of the Japanese text, and I don't think I ever remember playing it in split screen. because my missus, God bless her, just didn't like the look of this game at all. So I've never played this in multiplayer. Whereas Mario Kart 64, played that loads in multiplayer. I think my missus even played Wave Race on the N64 multiplayer, but this, she just was not interested. So I've never done it. I can't remember back to the PAL version to say with any authority that it has multiplayer. That's embarrassing. Maybe I should do some research before I open my gob and make myself look like an ill-equipped moron. Some of these signs and fences around this course, if you look, don't have any back faces on them. That means that when you drive towards them, they're invisible from the this direction that you're viewing them at. And like here, I noticed there was no back faces on some of these things, which is a way to optimise the rendering of the game. Those have got back faces, like they're 3D objects. Yeah, this course is quite interesting. It's got some uppy downy bits in it. It's got some stuff in the course as well, like obstacles. N64 always struggled with trees. These like tree barriers. Oh, there was some clipping there, just noticed that. Yeah, those barriers I don't think have got back faces. Anyway, here's that slow animation again. It is quite a fun game. It's challenging. It's certainly challenging, and you do require skills to beat it, and don't expect to become first in every race. All the different biker guys and gals have different stats. I've picked Average Joe here. He's Mr. Average. That's the best place to start, I think. I think you'll agree. Some pop in there, some things sort of drawing in, fading in, kind of disguising it. To be fair, when you're actually playing it, I'm not playing it now, I'm sort of talking over the video after the video's been recorded. When you're actually playing it, you don't notice the pop in so much, because you're concentrating on where your bike is and how your bike is positioned on the track. So you're looking about 10 feet in front of the bike. But when you look at it like this, and taking the whole screen in, you do notice a bit more pop up in the background. But it's fine, it's an N64 game. That's all fine. The water's a bit nasty. Yeah, it's decent. I actually worked on a motocross game back in the day called SX Superstar or something. I can't remember what it was now, so many years ago. And I've got a feeling we were developing it not long after this came out for, at the time, PlayStation 2 consoles, GameCube, etc. And we kind of ignored the existence of this game in gameplay terms, which we shouldn't have really. We should have played a lot more like this than it did. Obviously it looks a bit more impressive because of the power of the Xbox and the GameCube versus the N64, but yeah, certainly didn't play as nicely, from what I remember. Anyway, is it worth picking up the N64? I think it is. I think if you can get it cheap enough, get it for 15 quid. You'll get some fun out of it. Like I say, just you won't be enamoured with the graphics or the sound, but the playability is solid, and it's nice and high res, so it won't hurt your eyes, but it's not pleasant. Look at this robotic animation going on here. These fucking freaks of nature with their massive blocky heads. Oh my god, look at his face. Look at his poor assed face. I apologise if that's someone who's been scanned in, but Jesus. Okay, that's EXCITEBIKE. It's kind of recommended. Ta-ra!